Around the time of publishing this, season 4 will have been out for about 5 days and like 22 and a half hours or something like that, and it has been a wild ride. This is a season that I have a lot of thoughts on out of the gate, so I'm just going to give you my thoughts on what I think the first like week or so has looked like and what I hope to see coming in the next few weeks as well. When the season started, I would have said that it was one that I was probably the most anticipating ever. Like I had kind of, obviously season 3 was very fun and I really enjoyed it, but no matter how good a season is, like its end was there and it felt like it was a little dragging on if anything. So I was very excited for season 4, and especially when they announced the Dragonflight dungeons, I had high hopes. And I had high hopes for two reasons. One, because I went on the PTR and me and Cop did some keys, and honestly, they were very, very easy, very straightforward. It was a big suite of changes that came. Was the nerfing of the like the level or whatever you want to say. Like I would like to say that they're halved, but whatever. They've just reduced it by 10, so a 10 now is a 20, and like a 2 is still an adequate challenge, but still very easy. That is a very good change for players who are still learning, who are new to the game, and I had hoped that a lot of the players who didn't know what they were doing, they would go and learn in that way. They would start Mythic 0 and they would kind of slowly work their way up. But unfortunately, it does seem like maybe like 2 through 5 are still way too easy. Because I don't know what happened here, but the second reason I was so excited was because I thought that since all of these dungeons had already been present in this expansion, it would be much easier to progress out of the gate. I had huge dreams, and this is my own fault. I do this a lot where I kind of set these stupid expectations for myself, and I just kind of get in like, I can't divorce them from myself, and then it bothers me when it doesn't live up to that. I do that a lot with different things in the game, but never really this way. I've never expected this to go one way, and it didn't go that way that bad. And if you watch the stream for the first, especially Tuesday into Wednesday morning, it was bad. Like we failed a lot of very low keys, and I honestly don't know what to say about it. Like whatever happened, and it's frustrating. But the thing that really bothered me the most was just how few players actually seem to be prepared for the actual encounters that were coming in this season. I think it's partially also because of Tyrannical starting. Sometimes, obviously 50-50 really, but it does feel like more times it starts on Fortified. I remember in BFA, it was like Fortified multiple seasons in a row, and then there was a Tyrannical week to start one of the seasons, and that was just chaos. And I always feel that way because usually if you're struggling to get completions, Tyrannical is going to make that worse. And obviously, I would say that. Like, so if you guys didn't see the stats this week, it's not good. We did 43 runs total, entered 43 runs, 16 disbands, so 37% disband rate. That's not good. Week 1, it's usually like 10 or 15% at most. This is the worst first week I've ever had by like no. I mean, I don't have week 1 only stats. Usually, week 1 comes around at least twice, if not 3 times, many seasons. So it'd be hard for me to compare this season to those seasons because I don't keep only week 1 stats. It's always rotating. But even if you look, like it's actually, I'm going to look real quick. It is actually worse. Yes. So season 4, week 1, this is the current week, 37.2% disband rate. Season 3, week 1, and again, that would include 88 keys, meaning at least 2 weeks. I don't remember. I assume I played all 3 times it came through. 88 keys entered, 37.5% disband rate. So that means that like the second time around and the third time around, you were closer to that 50% number that we've had. And the first time was probably like in the tens. You know what I mean? So this is like maybe double, maybe even triple as hard in terms of success rates as any week 1 has ever been, and only a 30% upgrade rate. So that is really, really bad considering a lot of the keys that aren't upgraded are like 7s. Like there's multiple keys sub 10. I think many keys sub 10 that we did not upgrade. Now that's probably a bigger part than you realize. Like psychologically, it sucks to say, oh, I failed a 7. But if I look back at season 3, I can actually see that there was some keys that we did not succeed at early on. I have a Galakron's Fall, the third key I did, completion. Darkheart Thicket, fourth key I did, 17, completion. Sixth key I did, Blackrook Hold 17, disband. Murozond's Rise 17, and then Throne of Tides 18, completion, then Black Red Cold disband. Those are into the second day at that point. So it's actually not that different of a start. Like if you're going to assume that all of these things are the same, yeah, it's really not that different. And it's honestly like it's like a weird phenomenon for me because realistically, I'm actually having a similar start. It's not like the stats are lower or worse, especially disband rate. Like there's if I look back at week 1 here, there's only like there's like less than 10 disbands total. So we did a ton of keys that week. Compared to this, there's 16. So it's definitely worse in terms of community, like, reaction to failure. But that week was also the first one. Yeah, that was also a fortified week. So I think that makes a big difference. And honestly, I think it's probably pretty, like, it's kind of like a net loss. And it's just psychology. It's just in my head. I'm thinking, like, I wanted it to be better. I thought the lower numbers, are something, and they're not. And I just set myself up this way. You know what I mean? I put myself in this position where I was like, I need to get to 10 right now. Like I told Cop when I was starting the stream on Tuesday, I would be rushing to 10. You know what I mean? Like we'll get to 10 on Tuesday. This is another problem. The servers weren't down up until like I think it was like 4:30. I totally hate this topic, but it is what it is in WoW. So that was frustrating on its own. And then I only had like maybe like 4 hours to actually do keys or less. So yeah, anyway, the first day was such a bad day for me. I felt really disheartened. And I think like the big thing was just expecting all the dungeons to be ran easier. And I want to talk about that now for a little bit because I don't like when they did the rotating dungeons. I made a whole video on it and I talked about what I thought would be the good and the bad. Okay. The good obviously is it's a fresh experience. A lot of people kind of enjoy the fresh experience. You will have the ability to miss a season and not feel like you lost progression. And maybe most importantly, it offers you a variety of gearing that makes it feel fresh every season. Whereas in Shadowlands, you got the same trinket 3 seasons in a row. You know what I mean? Like I knew exactly what trinkets I wanted. I then just had to rerun the other side to get another blood spattered scale 3 seasons in a row. That's what I did. And I don't necessarily look at that as a bad thing. To me, WoW's competitive landscape has always been about execution in the face of that repetition. It's something that you should be getting better at over a long period of time, and it is not something that you should master the first time you do. But for some reason now the community is trying to play this game like if they are just totally mastered the game from the step like that they've been playing it for 100 hours for 20 years straight, and it's just boring to them, and there's no way that doing the same content for a couple months could lead them to any better progression, or maybe even more so, they just don't care about progression at this point. They're simply just chasing some carrot on a stick, and they're unable to figure out that in order to actually get the carrot permanently, you are going to have to get better at the content you're doing. We've talked about this a million times now. This is not going to be a video ranting about disbanding, but obviously, the way the community does Mythic Plus pugging is a huge reason that this is a problem in the first place. But regardless, it's something that I did, when we talked about the rotating season, I said the negatives are going to be that you cannot rely on people getting better over the course of 2 years. And if you go look at something like even Halls of Atonement in season 1 of Shadowlands and look at Halls of Atonement in season 3 of Shadowlands, it is wildly different. And I did not do I didn't take a fucking a course on how to do, you know what I mean? I didn't go read a textbook on it. I just did it for a year and a half and I got better at it, and it changed and the routes developed, and like environmental stresses on the Keystone changed my perspective on it. And each season, the fixes kind of kept it fresh. And it get to the point where I felt like I had really mastered that dungeon. Like I knew exactly what I was doing at every moment of the dungeon. And I knew exactly where the danger would come, those dogs after the second boss. Like it was all pre-planned out in my head. And I love that. That's the number one thing I love about video games is feeling like you are making progress as a person using your brain. You know what I mean? Not necessarily in game metrics. I'm talking about like actual comfortability. And this is why I like the idea of speed running in like a leveling setting, especially because it feels like if you just do the same thing 10 times, you should be getting better at it. But for some reason, a lot of people play the game, and instead of looking at it that way, they get like less enjoyment out of it. They don't challenge themselves to actually get better at the content. They simply just look at it as a chore and they think, well, I've done this so many times now. There's no more pleasure to be gained from it. And this is doing themselves a disservice. But frankly, this is what an MMORPG is. So you basically got Blizzard to change what an MMORPG's season is just to accommodate people who you would expect are not very competitive minded anyway. You know what I mean? So we're basically leaning into this concept where you have players who are not willing to put in a full maybe 2 years of an expansions, 4 seasons to get better at a set of dungeons, and instead they're basically just asking for it to be reset. Now, again, I'm not saying that that's why they did it or that that was the major feedback on bad. Like there's a variety of reasons that are good and bad in the rotating dungeons. But what I'm trying to say here is that the rotating dungeons are definitely going to make a good player have to relearn content, no matter what. Like it doesn't really matter. Like you can't really say otherwise. There's no way to argue against that. And I don't want to do that. I don't want to start every season feeling like I have no idea what I'm doing in 8 dungeons. And so, long story short, is what I'm trying to get at here. I expected this season to be off to the races. I figured we'd hit the ground running. There'd be 5 people alongside me that would all already know the dungeons. And even if they didn't play in season 1 or 2, they would have done the dungeons on heroic or something while leveling or mythic 0 at some point, and they would have at least seen the encounters, and they would have a way better starting point than something like Mist of, like a Mist of Pandaria dungeon when nobody's like the people who are doing dungeons now don't even know what Mist of Pandaria is. They've never entered the expansion. They don't know a single part. Like, where is this dungeon located? Like, I remember in season 1, people literally didn't know how to get to Temple of Jade Serpent, so that sticks in my mind. But anyway, those are the thoughts, and I'm very disappointed that it didn't work out that way. That was my thoughts after a day and a half, maybe 2 days of playing. Then all of a sudden the lights clicked on. And I don't necessarily know what happened in terms of the gameplay. Realistically, if you look at the stats, probably nothing. It's just, again, a psychology thing. But man, did that gear shift hard. We went from having I was ready to just say like this. It honestly, I said this on stream on Wednesday, it honestly felt like the end of the season again. It felt to me like people were putting zero effort into the dungeon. They were simply just not even like. I mean, I think the best example was in Not Good. We're just sitting here watching these casts go off for like 50% of people's health, and nobody's interrupting them. And we got a fucking resto druid without an interrupt, and it's just like bombing these people. You know what I mean? And I don't know what people are looking at on their screen, but those types of things are what Mythic Plus should be, the number one thing that you should be learning. You know what I mean? You should be able to identify these fluctuations in health and identify what's casting things and start reacting to them. And we're doing like 2 or 3 runs now where people aren't doing that. And it's just like, it makes me want to pull my hair out because it's like, this is something we learned in season 1. You know what I mean? Like if you played in season 1, you know that the mobs and the boss in the storm area are brutal. And you need to be ready with both defensives and interrupts. And this is why you want 5 interrupts, because it's at a pug, you have to interrupt 2 mobs simultaneously. And especially with raging, you aren't be able to interrupt a mob with stuns. So it's like we need certain things. And now we're sitting here like people just didn't learn from that at all. And it's probably mostly that people straight up didn't play the season. But I'm very sure that a lot of people simply didn't even watch anyone play the season because it's very well documented. This is not like running Temple of Jade Serpent or whatever else you want to say, like Legion dungeons, even WoD, and even eventually now Shadowlands dungeons. These dungeons are not the same. Like when you go and look at me doing them in WoD, you're not going to learn anything from watching me do it in challenge mode. You are not going to learn a thing. But you can literally go back even on this channel and watch me do siege or not go defensive, and you will see the exact same issues we ran into today, or not today, but this week, happened in season 1. Like it's fucking obvious. Like if you don't interrupt in that storm area, you die. You pull too much trash in the first area, you die. Like it's the same problems week after week in there, and I was just really hoping that this was not going to happen again. But I do think that, this was all in my head. So But yeah, overall, my thoughts on it now are I love the season 4 dungeon pool. I am hugely in favor of keeping the most modern dungeons in the pool every time. I do not want to see them rotate dungeons. I know most people probably do. And again, I'm in the minority of something. And it just kind of hurts because for, like I said, 20 years of WoW, the game worked a certain way. And I got really comfortable with that way. And now it seems like the community doesn't like the way the game worked for 20 years. So we're changing fundamental elements of the game, and I don't know. I'm just like whatever. I'm stubborn, I guess, and I'm not adapting to it well. But in reality, the season was very enjoyable after I was able to turn that corner, divorce those expectations, and like I said, this dungeon pool is definitely going to be my favorite out of all 4 seasons. So will there be any wild moments? Honestly, I have had a couple things submitted. I haven't gotten to watch them yet. This is a very hectic week for me, and yeah, I will definitely check them out. If you guys are out there running low keys, please press that record button and send them in. But realistically, it's not going to be like it was in season 3. Atal Dazar was a weird, very anomalous dungeon with 4 bosses that all had really funny low key type mistakes. And that would be completely different from the difficulty in a higher key. That's why it was so funny. That doesn't really exist in season 4, from what I could tell. And I think that's a testament to how the dungeons are actually made. Like they're made from the ground up, where there's not these weird trap mechanics. And that's because they're modern. And I think that's evidence that modern dungeons belong in the season more than the old dungeons. But anyway, let me know what you guys think about it. We did accomplish Keystone Master or Keystone Hero, whatever, 2K. I think we finished at like 2,030 points or something like that. And the final point I want to bring up, this season is fucking hard. I'm getting my ass kicked, like straight up bodied by tank breakers on Tyrannical Week. I'm very scared for Fortified Bolstering Week. It's going to be a mess, so make sure you tune in if you guys like watching messes. It is going to be bad. And the only thing I can hope is that it is a gear differential. I don't know that it is, frankly, because those mobs, like I got the last key I did, I get one shot. I took 2.2 million damage from a caster, like a magic spell on the second boss in Azure Vault. Obviously, there's many ways to survive these mechanics, but I have never in my career of doing Mythic Plus dungeons had to meticulously rotate CDs to survive a single tank mechanic as a Blood DK. That has never happened. I don't ever remember that being the case. So this is going to be a very challenging season. If Tyrannical does prove to be even harder than Fortified for me, then it is going to be the hardest season I've ever done. Usually Tyrannical is like a week where we can just take a breather and we don't have to work as hard, and it's just on the DPS. But this time it's still on the DPS seemingly, because they're also getting hit really hard with mechanics. But yeah, really, and I think the other thing is there's no easy dungeon. A lot of people are saying certain dungeons are easy, and in my experience, they are simply not. I think the difference is the timers are very easy. Maybe we're in that same boat we were in season 3, where the timers are very, very easy. Like I've heard people already double upgrading higher keys. That's great for them, but yeah, realistically, the actual numbers of the dungeon are very high. And I do think there's, we talked about this a lot. Where like, oh, what's the gear minimum requirement for Mythic Plus? I always try to default to saying no Mythic Plus requirement for gear, because I do not want people to think like, oh, once I hit 490 item level, I'm automatically going to be able to do a 10. But obviously, the antithesis of that is saying you can go in naked, which obviously is not true. But my point on that is that it is going to be probably the highest gear requirement ever to actually do 10s. But there's a lot of gear present, and with the bullion and plus the easy crafting this season, yeah, you should gain item level rapidly. But just really consider, I think a lot of people are sitting on their old set bonuses. Just really consider how much health you are losing by doing that. And especially considering how easy the timers are you making the accurate decision to gain some DPS over actual health pool right now and survivability? That's a decision that only you can make. But I have seen it night and day, where people are prioritizing their ability to survive, and they do not look like they're in any danger, versus guys who simply are just kind of winging it and just prioritizing probably whatever gear they had last season, and they're getting absolutely destroyed. So I don't know. Anyway, let me know what you guys think about the season so far. I'm actually very excited for it, but I do want to say, like, we only have 2 more weeks now, 2 more resets until Plunder, or not Plunder Storm, but Mop Remix comes out. So that week, what I will do is I will stream Tuesday and Wednesday, and then Thursday and Friday I will stream on the second channel. If you guys aren't aware, I have a second channel where I do like low stakes, like leveling content and leveling challenges, quote unquote. It's basically just a place where I can just explore the video game and just chill out, kind of the exact opposite of Mythic Plus. And I'm desperately trying to get another 150 subs on that channel so I can get it to 1,000 subs and get it partnered. And I would love to be able to do that before Mop Remix starts. But realistically, it's whatever. Whenever it happens, it happens. That's going to be down below. I will pin a comment. And I would greatly appreciate you guys subbing to it, even if you don't plan on watching the content. YouTube has a stupid arbitrary requirement. And so we have to fulfill that to get it partnered. But regardless, I have some immense plans for that, especially between Mob Remix and then the Alpha. I've already begun making all kinds of videos on the Alpha, testing out the new hero talents. So hopefully you have maybe seen it and it's enjoyable, but regardless, plenty of options coming. I do plan on streaming there when we get the opportunity to also level 60 to 70. I want to do like 60 to 70 or 70 to 80, I mean now, speed runs to practice leveling for launch night on there as well. So there's going to be a lot of content like that. But thank you for watching, guys. Let me know what you think. I had to rant and get that off my chest. Hope you guys enjoyed that. And yeah, definitely let me know what you're optimistic or maybe pessimistic about in season 4. And outside of the difficulty, I think it's gonna be great. I really I love this dungeon set, and as your vault man, it's just so nice to be back in there.